Hello gamers and welcome back. I'm Rob, of course, or Warshak if you want to call me by my in-game name, and I am excited to be bringing you and talking about the new Hearthstone expansion, Knights of the Frozen Throne. There's been a lot of speculation as to what the next expansion would be. A lot of people thought it would be something around Dalaran. A lot of people were pushing the Ice Crown. It happened to be Ice Crown. I am really excited that it was Ice Crown. A Dalaran expansion would have been cool, but I think Ice Crown just kind of hits the nail on the head for me. It was one of my favorite raids in World of Warcraft, and I'm super excited to be playing with some of these cards and defeating some of the bosses. So what we're going to do in this episode, we're going to give my general reaction to what was announced thus far. We're going to talk about it and kind of go over everything that you should know that you might have missed. From there, we're going to go into some of the cards that were actually released. It's hard to say how good these cards are without actually playing with them, of course, but we'll give our general kind of what we think about the card and a little bit of insight into there. So off the bat, on their main page, we see free legendary, free solo missions, free cards. You see free and you get excited. I get excited. Who doesn't get excited? So let's talk about the free solo missions first, because that ties directly into the free legendary and free cards that are directly next to it. So as we know, the adventure modes in Hearthstone are no more. They decided to weave three three expansions in per year instead of having adventure modes like Blackrock Mountain, Karazhan, Naxxramas, and things like that. But people missed adventure modes. They liked defeating the bosses. They liked feeling the accomplishment of going through a wing of bosses and being able to unlock cards based on the wing they defeated. It was really cool, and the boss battles were pretty unique, and they were really fucking hard. Especially Heroic Naxxramas. That shit was the hardest. Heroic Naxxramas was one of the hardest things ever. It was just, the bosses were so incredibly powerful, and it just took attempt after attempt after attempt of perfect draws and the exact deck to beat them. And that's basically what they said we can expect from the adventure mode built into this expansion. So there's going to be 7 bosses from what I'm aware of. There might be 8. I'm pretty sure it's 7 though. As we scroll down, I'll get a refresher. So we add the end boss, of course, being the Lich King, and then we basically beat every major boss in Ice Crown Citadel, which is super cool. From there, as you progress through this mini adventure mode, you're going to be able to obtain free cards, which would be located on the right here. And at the end, when you finally defeat the Lich King, hopefully you can defeat the Lich King, which, by the way, they said these bosses were some of the hardest bosses that they've made yet. I'm not sure if they mean these bosses on heroic mode or just in general, but if they said these bosses are the hardest that they've made and Naxxramas was like fucking ridiculous, let's just hope not. I don't mind them being on par with Naxxramas, but if these bosses are harder than the heroic Naxxramas bosses, let me tell you, we're gonna see some rage on our stream. So when we do beat the Lich King, if we can beat the Lich King, you get a free legendary. So they've introduced not a new class. A lot of people thought Death Knight would be a thing this expansion. The thing is, to release a new class would be crazy, guys. They already have balancing issues already, but they did the closest thing they could, and they basically released a Death Knight card for each class, and that'll actually turn your hero into a Death Knight. So on completion of the adventure mode, from what I understand, you will be rewarded one random class Death Knight legendary card. So whether it's a hunter, rogue, druid, you'll be able to obtain that. From what I understand, it's going to be random upon completion, and you will get one, and then there's a possible of 9, as there's 9 classes currently. We'll get into exactly what this does and what it means when we talk about the individual cards, but in order for us to explain the Death Knight legendary card you would get through completion of the mini adventure mode, I kind of had to show it to you early. Beyond that, we can expect, of course, 135 new cards with an expansion. I'm getting the adventure modes and expansion mix up here because I've talked about them so much. But 135 new cards. Normally, adventure modes had anywhere between 35 to 45, while expansions are much bigger. So 135 new cards is going to shake up the meta a lot, and especially when we're going to be able to change our hero powers into a Death Knight class for each individual class. I mean, that's 9 at least different decks that you're going to be able to build around this new Death Knight card, right? So that's just fantastic. On top of that, there's the new keyword of Lifesteal, similar to what is it? It's not the top of my head, but it's the Paladin 3-mana card, 2/2 Divine Shield. When it does damage, it heals you for the damage done. That's basically the new keyword of Lifesteal. For some reason, I know it's not Hemic. You guys know what I'm saying. It's a Paladin card. It's at the tip of my tongue. Of course, while I'm making the video, I forget it, but I've been playing with the card for like ever now. So lifesteal, new keyword, we understand that, nothing too complex there. It's nothing like the Inspire mechanic that was a lot of confusing to some. So free Death Knight card, that's what I was talking about. The free solo adventure would be the mini adventure, which I talked about, and then defeat bosses to get card packs. That's kind of like the free cards I mentioned as you go through the wing. Here are the bosses that we're going to be able to defeat. Altogether, I believe there's 7 bosses in total, and you're going to be basically going through the Ice Crown Citadel, defeating boss after boss after boss, just like you would do in the normal raid mode. So beyond that, for those of you wondering when it comes, if I didn't already mention it, it will be coming this August. If you're wondering specifically what time in August it's coming, most of the time it comes out a week after the beginning of the month. So you have like a week after the beginning of the month, duh. So just early August is what I would place my bets at. And then on top of all of this, I know it's a lot of information, a lot to expect. They released a couple cards, which I want to go over. So we're going to casually scroll over here. On your screen will be a little bit different than mine, as I'm going to do some editing to pull the cards in and out. But the first card we're going to talk about is Chillblade Champion. He's the 4-mana 3/2 charge lifesteal. It's interesting that they would put a lifesteal on a charge minion, especially in the Paladin class, because Paladin already has a good amount of healing. On top of that, when you have charge minions, they're mostly found in very aggressive base decks. And in aggressive base deck, you're not really worried about your life total because you're just trying to kill your opponent. Your opponent's worried about killing your minions that are killing them, and you're not really worried about your life. And if you are, it's about too late in the game because you've lost, because it just doesn't make sense. So like having a charge life steal 4/2, like it just, I don't see where this guy fits in, because if you're running an aggro deck, you don't need lifesteal, you want charge. So you'd rather sacrifice the word lifesteal and add, you know, an extra attack onto him, an extra HP, give him divine shield, something, right? So I'm not sure where this guy's gonna fit in, but interesting card that is. The next card, Spirit Lash. The 2-mana priest card. Lifesteal, deal 1 damage to all minions. So they could have worded this differently, and I think that's kind of the direction they took, because they're going to go back and change a lot of the cards. Like Halaziel, like he basically gives your spells lifesteal, and again, that Paladin card, it's literally on the top of my tongue. His name, Wicker Flame Burn Bristle. That fucking guy. Yes. They need to add lifesteal to him. So it's just a mechanic that's already been in the game for a little bit. They just didn't have a word for it. And now they can summarize when this card deals damage, heal your hero for that amount into just one base word, which I think is really simple. It's simple and to the point, and a lot of people just understand what the word lifesteal means. Spirit Lash, really good. We know how much, like, it's basically a Maelstrom portal to the board. I know this is like, nah, it's like a whirlwind to the board, but then you heal 1 for everything. Either way, it's a really good priest card in my opinion, and it's a cheap heal, deals 1 damage to everything. I wonder if there's going to be some other card that combos well with this. You know, like Warriors had Whirlwind, Sleep with the Fishes, Whirlwind and Revenge, whatever the case may be. They've got shit to do. I wonder if Spirit Lash will have some combo as well, instead of just dealing 1 damage and then there's no card to follow up. The next card we're going to talk about, it's going to be huge though, guys. This is big. Death Stalker Rexar. So this is the Death Knight legendaries I was talking about. It's a 6-mana battle cry, deal 2 damage to all enemy minions, and then you see 5 armor. So when you actually play this, you're going to be able to get 5 armor, so add that to your hero. Your hero then changes into a Death Knight Hunter, and along with your hero power. And basically the particular hero power that comes along with the Rexar is you basically build a beast similar to Build-A-Bear Workshop. You're going to be able to click it, you select basically a creature, you're taking that creature's ability, you're taking a creature's stats, and you're combining those 2 creatures into 1 creature, and that is now your Build-A-Bear Workshop. So changing your hero power from, of course, dealing 2 damage a turn to more of a build a creature that didn't actually cost you a card in your deck is more of a value swing. So will we see maybe a control hunter or hunter slow down a bit with cards like this? Maybe. The thing is, you have to draw this card, plus it costs 6 mana and you do nothing else besides deal 2 damage to all enemy minions. As good as this does seem, it depends where Hunter lands. Hunter has always been an aggressive class, and it's always had aggressive decks to follow that up. So in order for this card to make sense, Hunter has to slow down, or at least the meta has to slow down to a point where on turn 6, you don't have to play anything. From there, you're going into Build-A-Bear mode, and then from Build-A-Bear, you have to have time to get yourself some decent creatures, right? So it all depends where where it'll land. Overall, I think it's hard to say, guys. This is one of those things that it's going to change the game a lot. Changing hero powers changes stuff. Wow, Rob, insightful. You change stuff, you change stuff. No, but really, if you're going to be changing all of the class hero powers into something more, this is going to shake things up a lot, guys. The next one's going to be a Shallow Gravedigger. There's going to be a 3-mana 3/1 Death Rattle. Add a random Death Rattle minion to your hand. I don't think this card is very good. I think paying 3 mana for a 1 HP minion is really bad. If you're playing against a Mage, Druid, or Rogue, they can just use their hero power and kill it. Granted, you get a Death Rattle to your hand, but you don't actually get to pick that Death Rattle, and it could just be a shitty Death Rattle, right? So I don't think this card is good, like, at all, but who knows? The next card we're going to talk about is Prince Kelsath. Hopefully I said that right. And he's a 2-mana 2/2 legendary neutral. And he says, battle cry, if your deck has no 2-cost cards, give all the minions in your deck 1/1. So the first thing I thought was you play Rogue, you play Quest Rogue. Actually, you don't even need to play Quest Rogue. You just play a Rogue with no 2-drops, and then you Shadow Step this guy back to your hand 4 times, and then all of a sudden your minions have +5/+5. How's that sound? I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, a lot of decks 2-cost cards are really nice. If you look at Priest, Shadow Word Pain, this new Spirit Lash card, Shadow Visions, there's just a lot. If you look at every single, for Mages, Frostbolt, for Warrior, Execute, you know what I'm saying? So you're giving up a lot by not playing 2-cost cards in your deck at all in order to give the rest of your cards +1/+1. On top of that, you actually have to draw this card relatively early on to get good value from it. The later on in the game you get, the less value it gets. And even if you can hang on later in your deck, due to the fact that, again, if you have no 2-drops in your deck, you're missing CC, you're missing 2-drop monsters, you're missing a lot of your early game, right? So it'll be interesting to see where a Prince deck hangs out. I think it's going to fit more into a Reno style deck, because at that point in time you only can run one of cards, and or not a Reno style, but a Kazakus style deck at the time, if we're talking about standard Renos and Wild. But either way, you could play them in Reno. And those decks, we already know you can't run 2-ofs. So the 1-of 2-drops in your deck aren't, I don't think, as many as running, like, losing out on 2 Frostbolts is much worse than just losing out on 1 Frostbolt, right? So I think this might be found in more of the Reno style, Kazakus style decks, and it'll be interesting to see where that lands, because a lot of those decks, some are more creature heavy than not, because there's just a lot more variety in creatures than in spells, because there's a lot of neutral creatures and there's not a lot of neutral spells. And by not a lot of neutral spells, there's 0 fucking neutral spells. So it'll be interesting to see where this guy lands. But I like his ability. I like that it's different. And I like that it requires, like, playing this one card makes you have to change your entire deck up. And I think that's cool to get like a big ability. And giving everything +1/+1 is huge. You don't realize how big that is until you start playing your creatures. And you're like, holy shit, this can trade into this and it doesn't die. This goes here and it doesn't die. Fantastic. So I think that's super cool. Like, Reno changed up the meta. Reno was never a problem card until Kazakus came out. Reno and Kazakus together, they were just dominating. So I like cards like this that require specific play or specific decks to get full abilities from it, and you build their deck around it. So I like it. So with that, that's going to wrap up all of the information and all of the cards released thus far on the new set. I'm really excited to be going over these cards and talking about them as they get released. Keep in mind, I'll probably do, like we do every other expansion, about 5. I want to do 10 to 15 cards per card review, because if we do too many, it's too long, and we do too little, it's just too quick, and I don't really feel like it was worth your time. So I'm gonna do my best to keep it to 5 to 10 cards per episode. But unfortunately, sometimes Blizzard, like towards the end of the expansion, will release 45 cards at one time. Thanks, guys. So I don't have an option there, but I'll do my best. So let me know what you think out of all of these cards so far, any of the information, or if I happen to leave anything out, I'm super sorry. Leave it in the comment section below for those of you who are looking for even more information than what I provided in this video. As always, guys, thank you for watching. I'm Robert Warshak, and happy whatever the hell day it is.